What we've seen is individuals that haven't been employed ever, or we have those that have been employed, but it's been a long time. And we say, listen, we want you to start with the employment model through the Worthwhile Thrift, because regardless of where you're heading, what you aspire to, it's still good to get some practice under the belt. You're going to be in a safe environment. And I remember, some of them will come in and be like, oh my goodness, like 3 hours a day is killing me. And we're like, hey, fine, you got to start somewhere, right? And then they build up and then a couple months will go by and man, I can't believe 3 hours was hard. Like that's easy.
Well, friends, we have a very exciting episode today. We're excited to have Dan Emmer joining us from Worthwhile. He is the executive director and founder, and Worthwhile is a wonderful anti-human trafficking agency that is located outside of Philadelphia here in Pennsylvania. And in today's episode, what we want to highlight is the wonderful work of Worthwhile and the various ways in which they serve survivors, but also an exciting opportunity for collaboration that is going to be coming forward in the next year or so. And so we wanted to highlight that, give you an opportunity to meet Dan and hear of their wonderful work. And so, Dan, would you be willing to share a little bit more about what you do and the services that Worthwhile provides?
Yeah. Well, first off, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for this platform to be able to connect. And I'm excited too to share about, what partnership looks like and what it can look like. But yeah, as an organization, our whole premise of what we do is built around the name of our organization, Worthwhile, with this understanding that individuals that have experienced exploitation, that have heard that they do not have a voice, do not have value, need to otherwise hear that they do have value and have worth. And so we do that through a variety of different approaches. Because trafficking is such a broad thing, it means that when you're working with someone that has experienced trafficking, it's not just one element that needs to be addressed. It's a multitude of things. And so it requires kind of a multi-pronged approach. And so Worthwhile's been operating since 2012, so we're coming up on 13 years. And where we are today is really a comprehensive, holistic model. It didn't happen overnight. It took a lot of kind of iterations to figure out how to get it to be the best model, but a lot of that came from survivor feedback. But what we do is, work to address the multitude of needs that we're seeing, and also addressing this understanding that you need to meet a survivor where they're at in their journey, right? And so we start with our outreach program, which is called Worth It. And we connect with survivors in the community, do that in prison, in schools, working with women, men, and youth. We also then offer long-term housing through our program called The Well, which is where we can provide a chance to kind of build a new foundation. For up to 2 years, they can stay there. This is for women 18 years and over. And there's 2 homes that they can move through the program. And that's where, we have them, really building that new foundation and stepping out from that program. And while they're enrolled in our programs, they have that third element is sustainability, and that's employment through our thrift stores. And these thrift stores aren't your traditional ones maybe that you're thinking of. They really have a beautiful aesthetic appeal. They have mission kind of poured all throughout. So when you walk into that store, you know why you're there. You know that it's supporting survivors of trafficking. And the stores act as a beacon within the community, but they also offer that employment piece. So individuals in our programs, if they're in need of employment or haven't been employed for a while, it's a great place for them to have that opportunity. And so that's kind of in a nutshell. That was my 3-story elevator pitch. We can expound on all these, but those are kind of the ways that we serve in this field.
Oh, we love it. And thank you for giving the overview. And just for those who are hearing of Worthwhile for the very first time, as Dan said, they launched in 2012, and you guys have really become a model for many of what excellence looks like. And we are so grateful for the way in which you also collaborate with others, and not just from just between you and I, but also even your team. And I just wanted to even highlight just how gracious your team has been as we have been preparing our restoration home, and we have launched it at this point. But it has just been wonderful to have some of that peer support, even in the field, and your team that has been just wonderful in answering some of those questions, allowing our team to come and tour your the well, which it serves kind of like our restoration home, but then also Melanie's house, which is that transitional housing that you noted. And our team was just blown away at how welcoming and kind your team is, but then also just your model that you all have really created in this time, and even your tracking systems, which some people may not love the numbers and the metrics as much, but I'm like, oh my goodness, I love the fact that you all are following that evidence-based model and also tracking it so that others can see here's what true success can look like, and those lives that are being restored as a result. And so the piece today, though, that we're going to focus a little bit more on is on worthwhile thrift. And so that is the other element where you've got the restorative care end of it all, but then also as you're looking at lasting freedom and equipping those that you serve with not only the life skills, but the career development skills, and then also employment opportunities. But could you share a little bit more about worthwhile thrift and the heart behind that initiative, and even how many stores you all have at this point?
Yeah. Well, and I'll first start off with your comment about partnership and your gratitude for that. Well, the reality is, like, we do that because that's the best way we can serve those that we're aiming to serve, and it's the least we can do, right? Like, we've been blessed. We've had others along the way help us as we were, first starting out. You guys are not first starting out anymore, but it's just collectively we can see better services be offered when we work together, and so that's so important. And likewise, we are happy to share what we know and happy to collaborate with partners like you that have a like-mindedness, and those we're serving the value that they have. So it's a mutually felt thing here. But yeah, worthwhile thrift. It's something that it was started right when we started our housing program. It was done intentionally to be part of that model. It was not an afterthought. And the reason why is when we talk about providing a holistic approach to healing, we oftentimes will see the immediate needs, right? And we see this like we need to address homelessness and provide shelter. We need to build foundational skills and life skills, and we work on that. We address trauma, which is probably the biggest piece. I would say addressing trauma along with building healthy relationships is where you have that long-term success and healing. But all that also hinges on upon leaving a program. Well, how do I sustain myself? Like, right? If I were to leave, any housing program, as much as they've equipped me, if I leave there unemployed, there's a strong draw to what got us to pay the bills before, right? And that's what we want to prevent. And so Worthwhile Thrift does a couple things. It was, again, started intentionally so that we could provide the employment piece for individuals that are coming through our housing program. Now it also is offered to those that come through our outreach program, the Worth It program. And what we've seen is individuals that, haven't been employed ever, or we have those that have been employed, but it's been a long time. And we say, listen, we want you to start with the employment model through the Worthwhile Thrift, because regardless of where you're heading, what you aspire to, it's still good to get some practice under the belt. You're going to be in a safe environment. You're going to, either recall things that you forgot or learn things you never knew. And so we have this opportunity where we have individuals coming into the thrift stores that have, started working on trauma, starting building foundation, and then they start the employment piece. And I remember, some of them will come in and be like, oh my goodness, like 3 hours a day is killing me. And we're like, hey, it's fine. You got to start somewhere, right? And then they build up, and then a couple months will go by, and like, man, I can't believe 3 hours was hard. Like that's easy, right? So they kind of build that up. We'll have survivors will come in and they'll say, I've got this, I got to figure it out, and then they start to actually do the engagement. Either they'll work in the processing area, working through close. That's kind of like the starting point, and then they work themselves up to they want to be at the register. Now they're engaging with the common, people, the lay people who don't know that they're, having a survivor checking them out at register, and you get some unpleasant people, right? And it's a learned thing too. Sometimes your reaction might be, I want to smack that person for their
Yep.
stupidity or whatever it may be. But there's another learned skill. And then the other side of it is that saving, right? Being able to save their funds and that income. And a story I always like to share is when we first started this, one of our first women coming through our employment program, she came barging in my office, and we had our corporate offices in the back of this one store. It was a larger store, so we had room for offices too. And she comes in and she started just lighting me up with some colorful language about screaming at me that we were stealing and all this. And I said, okay, like, let's real world scenario. If you did that, you'd be fired, right? And her eyes kind of like got wide. And she's like, really? I go, yeah, yes, really. You'd be fired for that. And she goes, oh, I didn't. Yeah. I said, okay, let's try it again. Like, let's just rewind the tape. So she actually kind of played along with it more than I was expecting, but kind of stepped out of the door, stepped back into the office. And she's like, I have a question about my paycheck. And I said, okay, let's look at it. And so she showed me her paycheck, and we looked at it. It was her very first one. And I said, yes, it feels like stealing. Those are called taxes. It's not something we stole. So it was another learning experience for her that she had. And then beyond that, though, and this is the biggest part, and we've seen this have such a high success rate, is that, you and I, Jordan, we, have the opportunity to interview people and sometimes hire people. And if you have someone that's applying, and this is just being real, and someone that's applying that hasn't had a job for a long time, there usually isn't question marks like, why is that? And it may get shuffled to the bottom of the deck of the pile. And we share this with the women, like, listen, if you start employment at the stores, you're going to have a far better chance of that next job that you want. And we know that you want that next job. We want that for you, but look for that job while employed, because now you have a very good reason. You can say, listen, I want to pursue phlebotomy. I want to pursue, whatever it may be, hairstylist. That's not necessarily needed for me, because those that are listening, I'm bald. But they might say, I want to go to these careers. And if they apply and they say, and the new person they're applying to says, well, where are you at now? They can tell them where they're at. Why do you want to leave? Well, this is, I get paid this. I'd like to get paid a little more, or I prefer to go in this field. And we've seen such a success rate of that transition from one job at the Worthwhile Thrift to a new job that aligns more with their likings and more is a career job, that we've said, this is like a requirement. It's part of the program. Like, they start out 90 days at the stores. At that 90-day mark, they can start applying elsewhere, but they have now 90 days of practice under their belt. And so it serves that far as the employment piece. I'm not going to go into other details right now because you might have other questions, but that's one big way that these stores engage with those in our programs, and how they really are helping them be equipped for long-term success, building a financial foundation that they can stand on and then move forward from.
Yeah, no, it's very real. Even in some of the financial literacy courses, or as we've talked about, and offering some of that, the reality is, they're like, well, wait a minute, how am I supposed to budget if I don't have an income, if I don't have a job? And as you noted, just many of the challenges that exist in finding that employment, especially if, they've taken a year off or so as they're seeking to heal and recover as well. And so it's just a beautiful opportunity to meet a very felt need. And continue building upon it. I love that story. You shared it at our gala as well with the taxes. And listen, I feel it too. Come on, why are they stealing from us? But it's real, and it is. We chuckle about it, but it's a real sentiment that many just do not understand. Some of the complexities of getting that first paycheck that actually has taxes that are being taken out, and the process that goes into all of that. And so it's a really wonderful application moment for what gets taught and discussed as well. So, but Dan, would you be willing to share about the partner thrift stores and this initiative that you all have launched? And congratulations on your third store that has also just opened in these past few weeks. But you also have another initiative, which is the Worthwhile partner stores. And so could you share what led to the birth of that initiative, as well as where we're headed together in this as well?
Yeah. And I'll add a little preamble to that too about thank you for the acknowledgement of our next store that just opened. We actually, I think that was now our sixth store in total. When COVID hit, it actually served an opportunity for us to really think, because we had to close the stores for a while, and really evaluate what is the best model. And because it was kind of this built-in pause, we really leaned into that, and we restructured how we move forward with our stores. So it was something where we sunsetted some of the stores, and then we moved to new locations and paired them up. And so we really have it dialed into this approach that works really well. And these stores, again, I kind of mentioned that they're not like your typical one aesthetically, but they're also size-wise, they're 20,000 to 40,000 square foot. So what you would see in a kind of a box retail. And they really serve as a beacon in the community, in the sense that we have individuals coming in and saying, I never knew about trafficking. And they learn about that, or how can I get involved? And say, well, join us and volunteer. And so we've seen a lot of success in that. And these stores not only are offering the employment piece to survivors, they're offering sustainability for us as an organization. And that is so powerful when you can say, we're not just, chasing down every grant that's available, talking to every foundation that is, that we can talk to. Those things are necessary, but it does alleviate some of that stress of like, where are the funds coming from? It removes, a lot of times we operate on kind of a opportunistic funding mentality that we'll do what we can as the opportunities roll in. But what if you could plan, right? What if you could instead say, hey, I know this budget is guaranteed. I got this fixed. That means I can do X, Y, and Z within our programming. And so we've seen that benefit us. We're very fortunate. But then the reality is, at the end of the day, Jordan, like you and I, we have a very short amount of time on this earth. We have to, understand that with that limited time, if we want to make greatest impact, we can't do it alone. It'd be foolish to say, I'm going to accomplish this, or Worthwhile is going to accomplish this, or Greenlight's going to do it all on their own. So it's best done in partnership. So kind of pairing those two thoughts together is that with limited time that we have, how can we positively impact as many people as possible? And that's also my personal mission statement. So I try to live that out. We need to do that in conjunction and partnership. So what we're excited is this now where I announce what's happening? Is this it?
Yes. Now is the time.
All right. So we said, about a year and a half ago, said, we want to develop something that we can really put this into play. And that came out of that was the Worthwhile Thrift Partner Network. And the idea was we want to find other like-minded partners that really are doing exceptional work, that have a proven track record, that have a community that really stands behind them, and say, let's partner with them. And what does this partnership look like? Well, we want it to be symbiotic in the truest sense of the word, meaning that both benefit, and so that we can then do more together. And so what it looks like, this Worthwhile Thrift Partner Network, is looking at finding one of those great organizations. We found Greenlight, or maybe Greenlight found us. I don't remember how that started.
Yes, it was a bit of a wild story, and I can share a little bit of how that happened. I don't know that either of us were seeking it out when it happened, but either way, it happened.
We found each other. Yeah. And we started that conversation. And so being that Greenlight has a proven track record, has a strong audience, a strong community supporting them, this thrift partner, what it looks like is that Worthwhile will open a new thrift store in the Harrisburg area, operate it. But then this is where the partnership really comes into play, is that 25% of the net proceeds go directly to you as an organization. You use that however you need to. That is not a small amount of money. That's, in the six figures and beyond, but in six-figure range that you can plan around each year. It also then offers an opportunity for employment for those in your care, that you're saying, hey, here's an opportunity, go get, you have a job. You could work up to 40 hours a week, which again, there's, as far as I know, not any organization has been able to offer that. A lot do, kind of skills training or do other things that can offer some employment, but, offer up to full-time employment is a big benefit. It then becomes a beacon in your own community. You can refer people to it to say, hey, if you want to make donations of clothing, items, go there, donate. If you want to volunteer, because we know it's hard to engage with large numbers of volunteers at the housing programs. But at the store, you can have dozens at a time. And we have that model set up that we can engage with a lot of volunteers. And then additionally, volunteers oftentimes become your strongest donors. And we want this to be when they say, I want to donate now that I've been volunteering, we point them back to you. We want them to support what's local to them. And so there's a lot of ways that we want to see this be a true, opportunity to serve survivors greater, help you be equipped and sustained so that you can do this for the long term, and help the community learn about an issue that they aren't just going to learn about, but can get involved in as well and serve alongside you.
Right. Yeah. And Dan, we're so honored and excited because I know there are many, many incredible agencies that are worthy of this opportunity. And we continually just count our blessings and are humbled that we get to partner with you all on this. And just to even share some of the story of on our end, how it transpired, and just even the answer to prayer that it truly is I recall Michelle and I were visiting Worthwhile primarily to see the well as well as Melanie's house to really see and tangibly understand some of the processes that you all had in your restoration home and understanding the challenges as well as what has worked well. And so we were meeting primarily with your restorative care team at that time. And I remember Allegra saying, "Hey, would you all like to come and see one of our thrift stores?" And we're like, "Absolutely, that sounds like a lot of fun. Let's do it." And you were in the office at that time, and we had a chance to connect. And I remember just picking your brain about a bunch of different questions that related to exactly what you were saying. Some of the biggest challenges are for executive directors and agencies as it relates to funding of, how there's so much time and energy that is focused on that, but there's so much that is desired to be tackled as we work to combat trafficking and serve survivors. And so we were asking a bunch of those, business type questions and trying to understand the thrift store model a little bit more. And I remember at that time you were sharing about your partner thrift stores, but you had, I believe your team had semi-soft launched it, and then at that time had paused it and were reassessing and evaluating. And so we're like, wow, that sounds really amazing. Michelle and I, who had gone, Michelle is our residential program director, and we were so focused on more of the restoration home launch a year ago and processes that we were like, oh, the thrift store, that is really cool. But it wasn't in the forefront of our mind at the time. And I remember driving back with Michelle and we were processing. She said, that thrift store would be pretty neat, someday. And I was like, oh, absolutely it's a really neat model that they have. But I was still so focused on just the home and just had the tunnel vision at the time. And I remember it was a few weeks later that you had reached out for a call and shared just a little bit further about the partner thrift stores as well as the potential opportunity for us to collaborate and launch one together here in this region. And I've got to give credit to Michelle. She called it before I did, and she was picking up on it way before I was. I was still, again, in that tunnel vision. And it has been about a year in the process behind the scenes as we've been working through the details. And this is the very first partner store that you all are doing. And I love the heart and the framework behind it of how can we help other agencies and further impact even more survivors, especially through the employment piece of it. And for those listening, if you didn't catch it, Dan was sharing that Worthwhile will own and operate the store, which is something that when you consider launching social enterprises as an agency, especially for Greenlight in such quick succession of having just launched our restoration home and growing in our other initiatives, it can, for some who are listening and didn't catch that, you might be like, oh my goodness, what are you doing and launching another large scale initiative? And but this is why it is so beautiful, is because it's owned and operated by Worthwhile. Their team has done this for many years. They know how to launch these stores, run them successfully. And so with their expertise, Greenlight then is able to recruit our volunteers, which the timing, our board really, we all felt that the timing would be wonderful because we had over 750 volunteers serve in the renovation process of the restoration home. But now that we have survivors that are moving into the home, it's not appropriate for us to have that quantity of individuals at the home or anybody who isn't a direct care team member. And so that opportunity in some ways has closed. And we've got a wonderful network of volunteers who are eager to serve. And we see it as a wonderful way to transplant that desire and passion and funnel that wonderful support network that we have and into a new opportunity to be able to help with the stage of physically preparing the store, but then also when the store is open, the more volunteers that we have serving, it cuts down on that overhead so that even more can get funneled back into the payroll for survivors and back into the mission of Worthwhile and Greenlight Operation. And so we saw it as just the timing was lining up very well. There was missional alignment. Worthwhile is a Christian agency as well and very faithful and committed in that. And so there was alignment in mission, but then there was the alignment in where we saw the growth and trajectory of Greenlight Operation as well. And recognizing that with restorative care, as Dan had mentioned, when you've invested so much into a person recovering from trafficking and they've invested a year in healing and recovery, but then they're starting to get hit with those barriers and challenges again, such as employment, or if they don't have employment, then it's going to be housing and how am I going to keep a roof over my head and food on the table. Now, our heart and desire always was never to say, go through this programming and then you're on your own. There are many wonderful community partners that will be introduced along the way so that there's a continuum of care. But it sharpens and enhances what is able to be offered in providing that lasting freedom and opportunity, especially when you can go through the career and coaching classes that we will have on site in our career and coaching room, but then also pair that with real life application and having a safe place where they can go and serve and work. And again, in a very unique way, and that this is a trauma informed environment. This is a team that understands trafficking, that understands the challenges traffickers will face, like Dan said, coming in with the colorful language and just, pushing back. Those are real things that a woman would get fired over. And so to have an employer and a team that understands that, or when she goes through some tough days, or maybe there's a customer that comes in that resembles a client she had or a trafficker, or maybe there's a trigger point in the clothes somebody is wearing and she starts to have a trigger and is panicking. She's going to be surrounded by a safe team that understands how to respond to that and help her rather than shame her. And so it's building that confidence. So she may not choose to forever work at the thrift store, but it's certainly allowing her to strengthen her legs and independence and confidence in who she is and what she can do and accomplish. And so we're so excited for all that is to come, for not just the organization, but for those that we serve and how much this can change their lives. And so, Dan, we are just elated and so excited to be able to partner with you all. You guys have modeled the way so well, and we're excited to be able to be part of this.
Yeah, and I think the reality is too is sometimes you had mentioned like we kind of started and then pulled back and reassessed. Where that came from is we were working with another organization out of Texas, and as we were kind of going down that road, we were kind of sharing the burden or load of trying to start a store with them. And as we did this more and more, and talked more and more, we had another group out of the Carolinas as well. And we just really kind of came to this realization, like, it's a big lift to start something. And I've actually had other organizations, because some might be listening to this and like, well, Greenlight, why don't you just do your own? And I'm be the first, like, I want to support wherever, however, but I've also had some organizations about 3 years ago saying, I think we're going to do this. And now the 3 years passed and they still haven't. And the reason why is because it is a lot of work. An outfitting a store like the one we just did of the 20,000 to 40,000 square foot, that ranges anywhere from $500,000 to $750,000. A huge expense to do that. Now, again, this is where partnership comes in, is that we said, Greenlight, if you can help us through volunteer efforts, keep those renovation costs down, those store setup costs down, that revenue stream starts sooner, because we first have to pay off all the debt, because then it won't be profitable for a while, but we can streamline that. So it may just be a few months where we have to pay down the debt. But it takes that off the plate. It takes off all the planning of, 30 to 45 staff and trying to manage that at some of these stores. It's a very big lift, but when we do it together, it can allow us to streamline that process, but really then support you. And it's what a partnership really should look like. And that's what I get excited about, is like, again, I give you guys credit and props because, yes, you are the pilot organization we're going to work with, but it's because you've impressed us as someone that understands what a partnership should look like, I've shared this with others, and they're like, we'll just, like I said, we'll just do it on our own. I said, that's fine. Whatever you need, let me help you. And years go by and it doesn't start. So we're excited that we can kind of get this going. I'm excited for you because you're going to see the way your organization will benefit and grow in such a way that I don't think you'll recognize now. Because the community wants to get involved. And this is what I love is the heart of the community is really revealed through these stores because they'll learn about this issue and they want to get involved and they don't know where to go or how to do it. And you say, here you go. Come here, work, volunteer, help out, and then know that you're supporting Greenlight through all this and get involved more there. And it's just become such a great, again, for lack of a better term, symbiotic relationship where there's a beneficial, benefiting happening both ways. And in the end, the ones that are really winning are the survivors that are being served because of these new resources available to them, the community, the broadened view in the community, more awareness raised. We really are excited for it. I think it's something that it's, as much as we talk about how great it will be, I think we're understating it because it'll be something where once you're starting the process, you're like, oh, wow, this is what he was talking about, like the benefit that the community can add into your organization and the heart that they have. Because once they start working with their hands, working alongside, learning about the issue on a daily basis, they just want to fully commit, and we want to point them to you because of the great work you guys are doing.
Thank you. And thank you. We love when more people are able to get involved. And like you said, there's nothing that really helps somebody to comprehend and understand it than really putting their hands to the plow. Because it's one thing for it to be a hypothetical scenario or they see a news story. It's another thing to realize that when you're painting a wall or you're, assembling a clothing rack, the lives that are being changed as a result of that. And you just can't shake that feeling and people want to do more. And so we're grateful for our community that we're part of and that's eager to get involved. And so I wanted to share kind of where we are even in the process of it all. So we are actively searching for real estate in Cumberland County to open up this worthwhile thrift store. And so I'll put a charge out there to listeners who are in the real estate realm. We are working with Marissa Chaplin, who sits on our board and is somebody who helped us to acquire our restoration home. But if you're a person that works in commercial real estate that knows of any facilities that are around that 20,000 square feet or more, please let us know because that is the dream and desire. We know that Cumberland County is one of the fastest growing counties in the state of Pennsylvania, and real estate is hot, and finding a location that is that size we know is a challenge, but we also serve a really great God and he moves mountains. And so this is an initiative that is just heavily prayed over as well. And we would ask you, this is a very real way for you to get involved is to reach out to us if you're aware of that. But then also once the real estate has been acquired, what we're going to be moving into next is more of the construction phase. So for those of you who helped us, especially during the restoration home renovations, rest assured, we're going to be reaching out to you. You're not done with us yet. No, but we would love to serve with you again. But also if you felt like you missed that opportunity because you learned of it after the home was already prepared, this is a wonderful way to give back as a business or to get involved. And so the renovations will depend on the real estate that we find and how much is needed. And so, Dan, you guys just went through that process with your launch of your most recent store. Can you share some of the ways that volunteers and contractors gave back to that really propelled you all forward? And like you said, helped to reduce the cost so more could go back towards the mission. But what are some real ways that people can get involved in and what impact did that make?
Yeah, I mean, the community really steps up in such a big way when it comes to the volunteering and helping. We had hundreds of volunteers coming and helping everywhere from doing demolition and getting the space ready to clean up to building. The contractors, what I love is we work with them and we're fortunate we have other faith-based contractors or builders. And one of those was like Bergey's Electric. And they allowed 3 of their retired guys who have volunteered with us for years. They've done our our different homes. They've done other projects. But these three retired guys get to use Bergey's electric trucks. They get to use their equipment. And then we just pay for supplies. So we get all this labor for free, and that's a 40,000 square foot store. And they just came and helped out. And that was great. And so the opportunities are abundant when we go into one of these renovations. And so that's something that we really say there's no shortage of needs for volunteers. And one thing I was just going to add on to your call to the audience as far as the type of space we're looking for. One of the other elements too is that we want this to be adjacent to or really, really close to a grocery store. It's part of this model that we found works really well. A lot of box stores are tending to go away. We believe grocery shopping is going to be around for a while. As much as you love to order online, it's still something you sometimes, you want to go and pick it up. So we try and look for spaces that are right next to or in the same shopping center as a grocery store as well. So keeping that in mind when you're looking. And then obviously the square footage rate is as low as it can possibly be. And wherever we can find, we'll have those discussions too. But those are the main things, that size, of the 20 to 40,000 and next to a grocery store. Keep those on your radar, and we would love to kind of explore them with you. And again, the lower all those costs are, the more benefit there is to the organizations and more so to the ones that are being served.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Dan, for sharing that. And I wanted to address a frequently asked question we've been getting as well, which is, there are other thrift stores in the area, but and so some have asked, do we feel like this is going to be successful? Is this competition to other stores? And Dan shared something that, and Josh, who works very closely with Dan in the thrift stores, is that it actually is very mutually beneficial for even the other thrift stores in the region to have more, because a lot of thrift shoppers, it's not like a department store where you're coming in and you're able to find, the exact item that you're looking for and you can walk out. It's a bit of a treasure hunt. And so there are a lot of people that are very avid thrift shoppers and may not find the treasure they're looking for. Or if you're like me, you end up walking out with everything except for what you were looking for and so much more, because there's just too much good stuff to pass up. But it actually is beneficial to have other thrift stores even nearby. So it is not a competition. It is one of those things that can play off of one another very well, and actually draw more who are into the secondhand shopping to the region, because there's a good concentration of thrift stores. So keep that in mind as well. If you're wondering about that or see that as a challenge, it really isn't. And Dan, you may have a little bit more to add to that too.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the best way to think of it is like yard selling, right? If you have a choice of going to one yard sale by itself out in a farm, or to go to one in a cul-de-sac with multiple yard sales happening once, you're going to go to that one because there's more opportunity. And thrifting is a lot like that. It becomes like a fun thing where students, young adults, elderly, they all want to participate in that, and they want to go, so if there is another thrift store nearby, that's not a negative, it more so is a positive, because then they can go around. Now, what I do love is that because we set the bar high as far as our quality, the care we take for those customers that come in, as we often hear, and I'm not complaining, but we often hear people come and say, we save all of our best donations for you guys, and we're like, thank you so much. We truly appreciate that. And I think too, it's just we want to really shine. We want it to be able to offer the best, and always striving towards that, and that's one of our core values as well. So yeah, it's one of those where finding that right partnership that aligns with that mentality of offering the best, striving towards that, because that's what we're called to do. So that's where these stores really shine, and we work with the other stores in the area as well. We've done collaborations, we've done whatever we can, because at the end of the day, it all goes back to kind of what I started with. We have a short amount of time here, so let's leave this world in a better place, pointing more people towards the true value through Christ in all the work that we do.
Absolutely. And Dan is absolutely right. The stores are beautiful. They're so well organized. I love thrift shopping, but sometimes you kind of can walk out with a twitch when you're like, I can't find anything, and you're a little dizzy as you leave. But it was one of the most organized and clean and well-lit thrift stores that Michelle and I have been to. And we had so much fun while we were there looking around and we purchased some items to take back. And so all that to say, we're so excited that a store of this caliber is going to be coming to the Cumberland County region. And we hope that those who are listening, that you get involved in, whether that is through volunteering, donating goods, or helping us with a real estate search or construction. We would be so grateful for that. But Dan, are there any other thoughts or closing remarks that you have?
Yeah, I think again, what I'm excited for is that this isn't a hypothetical. It isn't we think this will work. It's something that we know works. And what I'm excited for is to see that benefit you all in that way as well. And again, not just on the sustainability for the organization, but also for the women in your care. This is something where the community has a very unique opportunity to get involved. And so we ask that you don't let this pass by and wish you'd gotten involved after the fact. Get involved from the ground, and say, hey, we're going to help this get started. The first step in this whole process, after the vetting and agreeing and all that stuff, is finding that right property. So get going, get looking, and we're excited to kind of explore this with you all and your audience there. And I'm excited for it.
We're very excited. And just even on the timeline end of it, for anybody who may be wondering how long that takes, part of that is how soon we can find real estate as well. But Dan and his team had shared that once real estate is found, it's about a 12 to 18 month process. And a lot of that is contingent as well on how many renovations need to be done also. So we're looking at that 2026, 2027 timeframe. But the more folks that band together in this, I'm sure it will go much faster as well. But we're also more about the quality, and Dan as well. We'd rather have quality than just expediting for the sake of, pushing a deadline really hard as well. So, but we are excited. And what is beautiful is it really will align well with even the timing of residents in our program and when they can start getting some of these services and access to employment opportunities and hands-on support as well. And so we're excited, Dan, and thank you for joining us for the podcast and for sharing your heart and all the wonderful work that Worthwhile does. And just thank you again for this opportunity. We're excited to link arms with you.
Yeah, happy as well, and continue the great work that Greenlight's doing. You guys are doing phenomenal work. You're spreading a lot of awareness, raising an important message to the top of people's, radar, that they're now aware of this, and you're helping individuals as well. So this is definitely a collective in our response, and I'm excited for it. And we're excited to see what the Lord has in store.
Thank you.